It's winter here, so the Wi-Fi is it's not a vibe.
Well, hello, my beautiful stones and gems. Welcome back to another episode of the Medusa Show. I am your host, Miss Mama Medusa, and this is the Medusa Show. And as you can see, we have a very special guest, Miss Isabel Leanne. Now, I was gonna let you introduce yourself, but I just want to just say this girl be having the whites upset. Okay, she specializes in making white women upset, and so that's why I had to have her on my platform. I think it really is a gift. I feel like you are like an expert. Where did you learn this? How did you get so good at it? You perfected it.
I mean, I feel like I have a very unique circumstance with the way I was brought up. I'm white mom biracial that is also a transracial adoptee. So my
Wait,
entire
what?
yes,
You were adopted by white people?
yes.
I did not know this. Like, this is a genuine. Are you okay? Like, are you?
The therapy bills are high. They're high.
I
10 out
feel
of
like
10 do
you're.
not recommend.
Yeah, I feel like you're in need of compensation. Like,
For real.
oh my god,
For real.
I did
No.
not know that.
Yeah, so I was adopted. I went to go live with my family when I was 6 months old, and I was adopted when I was 9 months. And my sister and I were adopted together. So I kind of had that one person that made me make sense because no one else around me looked like me, or like we grew up in a very rural area, middle of nowhere. Closest town was only 700 people. The first time I ever saw a monoracial black person, like actually just like a monoracial black person in person, I was 6 years old, and we went to St. Lucia.
So wait, is in the area there are no black people?
No,
And
no.
then are there mixed people in the area too?
No, it was like black people population too, like me and my sister, and that was it.
Wow.
Like they had like a town hall meeting about my sister and I coming to town,
Why
and
did they do that? I don't understand what that. Have you ever had a conversation with your adopted parents and like asked like, why would you adopt a biracial children and then bring them to an all white neighborhood?
like I asked, and their general like attitude about it was very, we don't see color, other people don't see color, like we don't deal with it. If we don't see it, we don't experience it. Like
Mm.
it's not existing. And my sister and I, like, we obviously noticed the difference because we were, my parents adopted 6 kids. So all
Black
my,
kids, 6 kids.
no, they're all white
Okay.
except for my sister and I. So like my entire family is white except for my sister and I, and we were adopted. And like seeing how our other siblings were treated, like my sister and I were adopted last. So just seeing like my other siblings experience in society and just thing like, you start to put the pieces of the puzzle together that you're not the same, and your
Mm.
experience and your quality of life is different than your other family members. But when we would bring it to their attention, like to them it doesn't exist, so it's easy for them to dismiss it, which like it, I feel was like very much so unintentional gaslighting
Mm.
by my immediate family. By my extended family, they were very intentional with their gaslighting. They were very intentional with their racism. They were very intentional with their favoritism. Like it was very clear to us that our acceptance for admission into our family was to behave as white as possible.
Wow,
And
assimilation.
yeah, and they put that pressure very much like so heavy on my sister because she was darker skinned.
Mm-hmm.
So like my sister easily could have passed for monoracial light skin
Okay, so
person.
she's still light skinned though.
Yeah, she's still lighter skinned, but definitely easily passable
Looks,
for monoracial.
yeah.
And I think because she was so visibly black, they felt the
Felt
need to overcompensate with her and kind of suppress that. And with me, they were like, oh, well, like because of her proximity to whiteness and like because of how she looks, we don't have to worry about her. Like, why would she even want to identify as black? Like, she could pass for so many other things other than black. Like, why would she ever want to identify with that? So, like, they kind of let me like free roam, which was a big mistake
right.
because that's basically how I became an expert and just
Mhm.
like disappointing and fucking up white people's emotions because I started with
You're
my own
really
family.
good at it. You're really good at it. So, and it makes sense. You've been doing it your whole life, from what I understand.
Yeah, like when you have had these type of conversations and have had to engage in this type of rhetoric with your own family members, it becomes very easy to like not even be bothered by a random troll on the internet and not even let them see me sweat or let them see any level of like emotion coming from me that they want to be able to provoke because they can't. Like I've literally had my aunt look me dead in the face and say, I don't need to call you an N word. You do that yourselves.
Are you
Like,
still in contact with this aunt?
oh God, no. No, no, no.
Okay, good, good.
Absolutely not. I've had like my uncle tell me I cut off my uncle because he told me that I should have Jefferson tattooed on me and that I should be grateful for everything he did for my people. Yeah.
What?
Yeah. He like was
I am
trying to
so
debate Sally
sorry.
Hemings with me
And see,
about
this
whether
is
or not.
I am like Adam. You know my platform. You know I don't play that. I'm extremely pro black. I'm vehemently against interracial dating because of stuff like this. I hear like traumatic stories from biracial people, and I'm just like, listen, like y'all are not holding your white partners accountable. You're not holding your white family members accountable, and as a result, biracial children, are like kind of like collateral damage. And who
Absolutely.
and then who's left to like pick up the pieces? The black community. And like, like that's where they find refuge at. And by the time y'all come over here, we don't even know, like we don't even know where to start. Like, and it's just like it's just causes so much conflict between us. So I'm against it. um
I agree. I'm completely against it, and people are very surprised to hear that because their first reaction is like, "But you wouldn't exist." And it's just like, well, if
Not
that
my
was the
choice.
case, like that wasn't my choice. I'm here,
Right.
but like, do I wish that my parents had made more conscious decisions about what they were doing and the implications, or just had been educated on any level about what it meant and what my life and my quality of life would be as a biracial person growing up in the 90s, early 2000s
Mm.
in a completely white family. Like my dad was an immigrant. My
From
birth mother
Nigeria.
was, yeah, and
Okay.
my birth mother was a like teenage prostitute and like she got pregnant. She was in a relationship with my dad for 2 years. He ended up getting deported shortly after I was born.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and it was because of her fuckery too. Like, you know what I mean? So it's just like a typical white woman like dragging down a black
Calling the
man. Like,
police on him. But you know what?
you
I'm
know?
sorry. I don't feel no. Hold on now. I don't feel bad for black men when they get
No, I don't feel bad for them either, but what I do kind of empathize with in his particular situation is that like he didn't grow up in North American culture. So for me, like I feel like it's very different, I guess, energy when it comes to North American black men and the rhetoric surrounding black women as opposed to like African black men because like I've lived in Canada, I lived in the States. Most of the conversations I have very similar conversations with black men in both countries surrounding their decision to date white women because like all my homies here have dated white women, but the difference is here is that even when they're fucking around with their white women, they will be extremely very clear about the fact that they are not taking it seriously. They have no intention of like marrying this woman, settling down with her, that they're basically tasting the flavors of the rainbow before they bring a like African woman or a black woman back to their mother, because they're never going to bring a white woman in their mother's house.
Really?
Like
Really?
absolutely, like absolutely, like all my
That's
African guy friend. I was with my African homie the other night. He's dating some snowflake. She was being like mad microaggressive all night. Like, and she was trying to be nice. Like, you know how when they're trying to be nice, but they're being just extremely fetishy and microaggressive?
Mhm.
And
Well,
like,
no, I don't know. I don't talk to. I try to stay away from them.
you said, I don't.
I
I don't socialize with them types.
I literally live in the blackest part of West Philly. Like I have no
Okay,
idea.
so white
But
people
no, I
generally
feel
like their microaggressions are usually like shielded or shrouded in, it's
no,
almost
I
like a
know how they
backhanded
do.
compliment.
I know how they do. I went to
Yeah,
school.
so like to me it's just like she was doing that, right? And I could tell it wasn't coming from a malicious place. I could also tell that this woman clearly didn't have the education to even understand how microaggressive she was being, but doesn't change the fact that I'm still in that situation. I'm still receiving that.
As a result of this black man.
Yeah, so I look at him and I'm like, I'm gonna tell you one time, check your girl before I check her for you, because I have respect for the fact that this is your house, but I'm losing respect quickly.
Mm.
And he just kind of looked at her and just like completely shut it down. Later on in the night, she's like joking, trying to make it seem like they're, like this cutesy couple and all this type of stuff. He immediately shuts her down. He's like, no, I told you multiple times I will never have children by you and you will never meet my family. And she just like laughs it off.
I've never experienced that. I've
No,
never been
like this is like Canadian snowflakes. They're a special breed. They are a
okay.
special breed. I was working at an office. I had this one snowflake that I was working with. Oh Lord. Good Lord, man. We
You
worked in a
calling them snowflakes is really sending me. Oh wait, what happened? Did I lose you? Okay, we're back. You're back. Quiet. No, I can't hear you. You might have to exit out and come back in. I don't know. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Okay. Well, this is awkward. It's like, no, it's fine. I'm sure she'll be back, y'all. If anybody is watching, hey, okay, she's back.
Hi.
You're good.
Sorry.
You're good.
I got a
No, you're
phone
good.
call.
You're
But
good.
yeah, no, I was working in a call center one time and we were all Africans, all of us.
Mm-hmm.
The owners of the company were Punjabi and the rest of us were either West or Eastern African.
Okay.
So we're all working in call center. They hired this white girl. It's an open floor plan, right? So we all have our cubicles in like an open room. This bitch, you could just tell that she was thirsty because she came in regular the first day, sees that it's pretty much all black men working in the call center, comes in the next day for work at a call center
And
where
leggings.
like we all show up in practically pajamas and she's wearing a full-on corset, like
Mm.
dead ass, like tits out, flirting with the boss in front of everybody in the office, trying to speak Swahili, like butchering Swahili. She
What?
tried to make
What is
jollof
that?
rice. She tried to
What?
bring jollof rice to work. I was at that point. I was like, nah, you
But
need to.
what is that? Like, okay, I have family in Canada, Toronto specifically, and I understand that Toronto culture is highly influenced by Caribbean culture. I get it, but like, what? There has to be a line drawn, like where it's appropriation and it's offensive. Like, I don't know,
Absolutely.
but it doesn't seem like it is. Like, and like that's why I don't. It's so funny. One of my mutuals, Mommy Wata, Maya Wata, she was saying that like she talks about colorism a lot, and she was saying how like she struggles to find like influencers in the UK to talk about colorism, like they almost act like it doesn't exist. Whereas like the American influencers, we're all about it. Like, what is that about?
I feel like I don't know. I feel like talking about colorism. I was having a conversation yesterday actually with a woman that does a lot of activism work within the trans community, and we were having a discussion about just like I don't know how people, you almost feel like something's being taken away from you if you're told as an oppressed person that you have a privilege over someone. Because
Hmm.
like regardless of like whether or not um I'm light skinned or whatnot, like I'm still an oppressed person. I'm still like
Right,
a part of an oppressed group of people. So
right.
like I feel like it definitely for some people can feel like something's being taken away from you. um like I can definitely see how people could have a hard time with that. I definitely like, even growing up with my sister and seeing the difference in the way that she was treated and the way that my family came down on her and suppressed her, and like the way that she was treated differently in public, and the types of rhetoric that would be surrounded as like descriptors for her as opposed to descriptors for me, or the way that my features would be fetishized and her blacker features would be put down. And like I took fetishization as like a compliment. Like I genuinely like thought it was like a good thing for a really long time until I
Most
realized what it was.
most light skinned women do.
Yeah. And I feel like that's where a lot of light skinned women can very easily come off as conceited. I feel like
Mm,
that's where it can come off like we have this like ego about us, because sometimes it does feed into the ego when you are in that mindset of believing that like, oh, like I am, like people tell me how pretty I am everywhere I go and how amazing I am and how like my look is so unique and amazing, and it's very easy to let that seep in and become narcissism. But like the second that you start to realize like these aren't compliments about who you are, these are compliments about the whiteness that they see in you.
yeah,
Like
your
because I have
proximity.
never been complimented on on the frizzy nature of my hair. Like
Mm,
if I have my curls nice and set and it's like the day after wash day and they're just perfect, I get compliments everywhere I fucking go. The day before wash day, when my hair is
yeah,
looking like, you know, crazy, the kitchen's out, like you think I get a
mhm.
single fucking compliment ever on my hair? No. Like,
I get
and
the
that's
most compliments when I wear like wigs. When I wear
yeah.
like curly wigs, lace front wigs, and specifically from white people. White people be all in my face. Oh my god, you're so pretty, and it's
Mhm.
just like. But when I wear my afro, like I think that it scares white people, and that's why I love wearing my afro because I want them to stay the hell away from me anyway. So I don't want to be approached
Amen.
by them. So
Oh, absolutely. Like I think definitely like I think it can be very easy to feel like, you know, because when you are an oppressed person, like I very much I have a lot of mental health like neurodivergencies, and
mhm,
um, I have a lot of like different things that would put me in different oppressed groups. So like when I'm having conversations, or when I first like, you know, started having conversations and started kind of dipping my toe into the black community, I realized that like no, like you need to listen and you need to realize that you are
mhm.
treated
Thank
differently. You
you.
do need to accept that. And that wasn't something that was necessarily easy for me, and that was with like having the visual representation every day of my life, watching the differences in the way that my sister and I were treated, and like how I was more positively treated or allowed more freedom because of my lightness. And it took me a while to like correlate all those things, but once you do, I think you kind of understand that you can't deny it, like it's just
Right,
factual. And then once
right.
you start doing the research and you see that like, you know, if you and I were both charged for the exact same crime in the exact same state, I'm likelier to get a lesser sentence than you because I'm light skinned, or especially my particular kind of light skin because I'm racially ambiguous. So I can show up in that courtroom with a wig and they won't know what the fuck I am. And I
Yeah.
can avoid that specific hatred of anti-blackness because it's very different. Like, I've experienced racism in other forms because people will think that I'm something I'm not. And
Right.
there's a very specific hatred that comes with the racism when someone views me as black, pegs me as black, and is racist against me because of my blackness.
Yeah.
It's
Talk about
very
it.
different.
Talk about
Yeah.
it. I appreciate you for mentioning that. Like, yes, like when we talk about colorism, and see this kind of brings us to the conversation that needed to be held on Housewives of Potomac. So, like when they talked about colorism on the show, and we're gonna get to it, it really pissed me off because I'm like, even the definition that they gave, like this very surface level definition, like, oh, it's just about like light skinned women having like a preferred treatment. And I'm like, that is not like I don't know what dictionary they read colorism from. I'm sure that is the definition, but it's like it is so much greater than that. And I'm sorry, I appreciate you for saying like, yes, like dark skinned women, we do get prosecuted at higher rates. Our maternity, what is it? Maternity,
More mortality rate.
yeah, the mortality rate when we're having kids is higher for dark skinned women, dark skinned children, like all of that shit. Like it's even suspension rates, like dark skinned little black girls get higher suspension rates than light skinned girls. Like these are facts. So I
Yeah.
just, and none of that was mentioned on the show. And it just
None of
irritates
it.
it really irritated me that they just like kind of just like relegated it to something as simple as like, oh, people just liking it. It was given very much so colorism is people just liking light skinned people. And it's like, no, like
Yeah, no, like I feel like it's impossible to have a conversation about colorism without describing how negatively like colorism has like real world effects on
yeah, you have
people's
to,
lives, livelihoods. Like,
yeah,
I'm more likely to get hired over you. That's just a fact.
it's just a fact.
Like that, like we can have the same job, the same education. I may even be slightly less educated and I will
Mhm.
probably get the job over you. That's just
And
facts. Like,
you'll probably make more than me.
exactly. Like that.
Maybe not much, but
Yeah,
like
like,
that's how it works.
but it's still more, it's still there, it still
Right.
happens. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, those few cents an hour equal up to hundreds of, if not thousands of dollars a year,
And
depending
it's
on the
like
circumstance.
it's like that's what I'm saying. Like when we talk about colorism, you have to approach it from a systemic approach, and that's why I feel like how Bravo like dropped the ball. I was just so. Can we just talk about it? Like
Yeah.
I was just so that shit gave me a fucking headache, and I was just
First
so
of all,
disappointed. No, yes, go ahead, start. Let's just
sorry,
like
I want to interrupt you on this topic, but like, I just need to get my aggression out. Fuck Robin, first of all. Fuck that white woman. Because
fuck
dead ass,
Giselle.
that
Mm-hmm.
shit irked my entire being because she was
What
the
did
one
she
on the
do?
stage that was acting the most upset and the most offended about the conversation and what the implication was. When in
I thought it was
reality,
Giselle. I feel like Giselle was the one who was the most because at the end she was like, "Okay, can we move on now? Can we stop talking about this?" Like, bitch,
yeah,
fuck you.
Giselle, I agree that Giselle was the most uncomfortable, but I feel like Robin was the most like, she was serving like she wanted to be catered to, or she
I feel
needed
like
that
Robin.
validation of like, oh, I'm not colorist. It's like the fact that you even identify as a black woman at this point with your phenotype is colorist. Like, I'm sorry, like, in my opinion, that is colorist.
Ooh,
Like,
black. I don't know if it's yeah, yeah.
I
It is a form of colorism. It's just interesting how like we accept so many people into the black community, even when they don't look black. Like, despite what I'm saying. Like to me, your race is determined by phenotype. And so if you do not phenotypically have like black features, which Robin does not, Ashley has herself even admitted it. Like you have green eyes, white skin, blonde hair, you are a white woman with a little bit of black in you. Like that's literally what you are. You have more white in you than anything.
Exactly. Like it does like and here's the thing. I'm sure that she has her heritage. I've seen her parents on the show. She's like she
Her mom
clearly
looks white to me
her
too.
mom yeah, her mom's like clearly like pretty much exactly the same skin tone as she is. But I feel like her mom has more phenotypically like non-Eurocentric features.
Her mom look
I
white to me.
can't like with her mom I couldn't quite peg what her mom's like phenotype would be, but I definitely would never look at her mom and mistake her
As
for a
a white
white
woman.
woman.
I
But
just feel
like
like we accept
Robin,
everybody. We accept so many people into our community as black that now like we've just brought like I feel like Robin's mama 50 years ago could pass for white. Like she would be white passing. Same thing with Robin. But now they try to say that Kalani is black. Nick, to this day, Kalani has flat out said, "Do not call me black. I do not identify as black. You calling me black is an insult to actual black women." And people still call her black. I don't like it when they call Janae Aiko's Asian looking ass black. I don't like it when they call Karuchi black. Karuchi does not look black. Why y'all keep calling her that? Why y'all keep casting her in roles to portray black women? She looks Asian. What? I hate what?
no, like I don't necessarily fucks with it either. Like I'm not about like I'm all about claiming your heritage. I'm African, so we're very open with like African community. We have a very different energy when it comes to um like biracial children and things like that. Like I find as opposed to the African American community, because I feel like with the African American community there's a level of trauma for a lot of American black people surrounding like the one drop rule kind of energy, and there feels the need to kind of protect blackness in its like
Yeah.
truest form or monoracial form.
I
So
don't
I do
agree. I feel like with Black Americans, we are the most accepting. Like we don't say mixed race. That's like that. I only
mm,
hear people outside of this country say stuff like that. When somebody is half black in the black community, they are considered to be black. Like this whole
that
new.
that depends, I guess. Like I've lived in the States like off and on from when I was 18 until I was about 27.
Okay.
And um but like my personal experience, depending on the circles I was in, um I was very much so accepted by the black community, like generally. But I was never called a half breed
Mm-hmm.
until I went to the States. Um
But
like I was never like told like that I wasn't black or like anything like that. Like I and even now, like when I get monoracial black women who are offended by my content and the fact that I identify with my black identity and like insist that I identify as white or whatever, it's always Americans, like every single time on my page when that happens, as opposed to like in the African community, it's very, I feel like Africans are almost like open to a point where it's harmful to them.
talk about it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like
that's how I feel about some Canadians as well. Quite as scale.
yeah, I
And I'm
feel like we romanticize white people. I feel like a lot of Africans
Woo,
like
yes.
yeah, they romanticize colonization. And
It's
it
so funny, right? Oh my god. I was talking to my homegirl the other day and we was talking about like white names. And like she was like, you know what? I ain't never met a black Lucas. And I was like, I know plenty of black Lucases, but they all African. Like they're not from here. And then she was like, yeah, because like African people be naming their kids like white names and shit. Like obviously, like because their traditional African names is somewhat hard to pronounce or whatever. Like, so they try to
yeah,
like, avoid it, but it's just interesting. They be picking the whitest names,
I
child.
don't know.
Like
Yeah, like I don't know my dad's real name. Like I've been looking for my dad's real name since I was 18 because when he came here under Duke Ochre.
they be picking
Like
the whitest
and
names in
yeah,
existence, child.
like and I have no idea. Like I'm looking at this man. I'm like, sir,
It's not giving
your
due.
name is not Duke Ochre. I can see the tribal fucking markings on your face and on your hands, sir. And you're gonna try and tell me that your name is Duke Ochre. Sit the fuck down.
Oh, okay. Hold on. Let's go back to Housewives of Potomac. Okay. So something else that pissed me the fuck off about this. I don't know. You tell me. I'm sure we're probably mad about two different things because we're approaching it from two different perspectives. But for me,
Yeah.
I was more mad at Candace. I hated when Candace validated Ashley and her bullshit and her basically validated her colorism and started crying, was like, oh my god, you acknowledging your privilege and acknowledging that colorism exists is really all I needed. Bitch, speak for yourself. Like I needed way more than that. That's the least you could do. And then even then,
Especially from Ashley?
and then even then, I don't think that deserves to be applauded. Like that's
No.
just like you acknowledging your privilege as a light skinned woman. While I appreciate you for doing it, I don't think that like this big of you to do that. Like it's because like you said, it's
Because it's
obvious.
not. Why should
It's
you thank me for
obvious.
the bare minimum?
But not only that, it's obvious. Like you're literally just
Facts.
stating the elephant in the fuck. You're pointing out the elephant in the fucking room. So it's just like, why should I applaud you for yeah, like for doing something that's like so obvious and doing the like you said the bare minimum. Like
Like
I
you're acknowledging literal facts that exist as part of my lived experience in reality.
an
Like
existence.
you're choosing to not gaslight me when literal facts are stated. And I appreciate you so much for that. That's all I need. And that
That's
meant so
all I
much to me,
needed.
girl. Like, no, like that
And then
was serving pander to the light skinned girl. Like, it was serving,
yes,
yeah, I
Candace,
wasn't
I
about
said,
that.
girl, do you watch my reviews? I've been saying Candace be pandering to them light skinned bitches. Them light skinned
Oh,
heifers.
for real?
Yeah, bitch,
No,
I've been
I
saying
haven't
it.
seen that yet. I
I've
need to
been
go to
saying that. I've been saying that Candace be pandering to them bitches.
I
Um,
need to be in your comment section more often, quite honestly. Because
listen, she wants to be a part of the crew. I feel like honestly, like I feel like if Candace was in the in crowd and this whole colorism conversation was brought up, she wouldn't defend it. She'd be like, no, they're not colorists. As long as she's not experiencing it, she would be fine. But because she's like the brunt of the joke now, you see how she's able to pick and choose when she sees it. Because at one point she said that they weren't colorists, and then on the next episode, on the last part of the reunion, she was like going off on Giselle because you're white looking ass and da, da, da. It's like, girl,
yeah,
you like to pick and choose when you have a this profound concept of colorism. Like you like to pick.
yeah. And then she got all offended because everybody didn't just roll with it.
Oh, Candace.
And it was like, Candace, no, we're not gonna be with you like that. Now, if Wendy had said that,
I just feel
then I
like
would.
nah. After we had that dumbass conversation and you bringing it after you just said that none of the women are colorists, why? Like you,
But that exactly. But I mean, like, if Wendy had said something along those lines, not in that context, but if Wendy had said
yeah.
something along those lines, like what you did to Chris, like it holds more weight because of your skin tone. Can we acknowledge that? Like, if Wendy had said something like that, then I would have taken it a little bit more seriously because I feel like. I feel like Wendy was the only person in that conversation that didn't piss me off, despite the fact that, like,
I mean, she barely
I
said
feel like she
anything.
could have done more and I feel like she could have brought more to the conversation. She's a
Nah,
professor.
I ain't
But
gonna
like
put.
at the same time, I understand because like why is she going to sit here and like lower herself to explain this to these people? Because the second if I was Wendy, and I'm pretty sure this was probably the moment that she checked out, correct me if you think I'm wrong, but I think the moment Wendy checked out was like in the first few sentences when they brought up the conversation. And I think it was Candace that was like, first of all, I just want to make it very clear. I don't think anyone on this stage is colorist. And I'm just like, right there. that would have been me.
We all checked
Like
out.
that would have been the moment for me where I would have checked out of the conversation. Even as a light skinned person, I would have been done because it's just like, okay, we're not having a serious talk, bet. Cool.
Right, right. This woman actually called her ferocious. You were ferocious. She used the hand gestures and everything. She said a grr, like to describe a dark skinned woman. Like, what's going on? Like, bitch, like, it's like you were ferocious.
Don't kill me. Can we talk about like the difference between how assault was perceived when Mia did it? Because like
What
that's
did you
one thing I will agree with Ashley on. And that's like with her like flip-flopping or whatever over like I that's one thing I will agree with her on is that like they hella switched up their energy when it came to the light-skinned girl full
being
on
violent?
assaulting
Mm-hmm.
another like dark skinned black woman at the dinner table, and when she does it, it's cool. Everybody still goes back to the house with her. People are checking up on her like she's a victim of the situation. But when
Mm-hmm.
a dark skinned woman exhibited any level of violence, they were calling her like they were sticking every
You're
angry
being
black woman stereotype on this
you're being
woman's
so
back to carry.
antagonistic. You are antagonizing her right now. Look at how antagonistic you being now, bitch.
That part.
I hated that part.
It's just like and I agree. I agreed with Wendy to the end in that situation. I don't give a fuck. I'm a Nigerian woman. She's Kenyan.
Right.
We're cousins.
I
Okay.
thought I thought she was Nigerian.
Oh oh yeah, she is
Right.
Nigerian.
Okay. Yeah, I'm like,
She's
yeah.
Igbo. She's
Mm,
Igbo. Yeah, she's Nigerian. Yeah, so like we're sisters. We're not even cousins. We're sisters. Our tongues are like knives, fam. Our tongues knives. I don't give a shit. That is my weapon. I will never raise my hand to a woman to anyone. I don't have to. I don't
right.
have to. I have a good vocabulary and I
Period.
am able to like dismantle you with my words and that is fine and I
And
can
not
do
only that, I'm
that.
too cute. The fuck out of here. Like, oh no, that's fighting is for ugly people. Fighting is for ugly.
Exactly. Like the face card will never decline because I will never let somebody fuck it up. It's not gonna happen. So like nah, at the end of the day, I think Wendy was fully within her right to say whatever the fuck it was that she wanted to say. I don't think she did said anything that was worthy of being assaulted over. Now don't get me wrong, there are certain like, I'm not saying that it's impossible to provoke someone or that
Yeah.
you
We're
shouldn't
not
have boundaries with the way that you speak to people or that like I definitely know when to take a mental note of like where I've pushed someone to because like if I make a decision to go past that point when I see that this person is clearly like at their breaking point then that's a decision that I'm making and if they retaliate then like I don't think I necessarily deserve to be assaulted, but I do think that I made a conscious decision to proceed knowing that that could potentially happen. I don't think that happened with Wendy though.
right.
I
Right.
don't think there was any point during that interaction where she pushed it to the level where like the assumption would have been a physical retaliation.
It came out of nowhere. She
Nowhere.
literally she threw the water. She dashed the water in her
And then you
face.
find out later that she's like fucked Peter or some shit like that or like
And then, oh my God, can we talk about that for just 2 seconds? Because I
yeah,
love
because they
how
slid past that way too quick. I don't
right, like
that needed to be dissected just a little bit more.
yeah, I was like, y'all could have gave me shit. Y'all could have gave that conversation more than the damn colorism conversation. Quiet as it's kept. Y'all could have kept that shit.
Yeah, that was a waste of time. We want to hear about Mia fucking Peter. That's what we want to hear about.
Pretty much, pretty much. Or you think Peter was fucking G? It's like no, I'm just.
Mm,
I don't know. I don't put
I
it back.
see it.
I can see it too. I
I
can see
can
them all.
see it.
I can see it. I can see them all getting down, quiet as it's kept.
Absolutely. I can see the yep. I can see the whole that whole what's it called entanglement happening between the three of them for sure.
Then she
I
tried
wonder
to
if
lie and say Child, she tried to lie and say that Wendy was the one that was giving it up. I'm glad they just bypassed that bullshit. They were just like, child, okay, don't nobody believe that. Like,
I just like I really can't stand Mia, and I don't know what it is about her, but it's just like everything about her irks my soul. Like, you know, when you're with a man and it's headed toward the end of the relationship and you're like starting to emotionally check out before you break up with him, and just the way that nigga breathes upsets your
yeah,
soul. Like,
yeah,
that's Mia to me. Like, everything she does is just like, why?
annoying.
Why? Yeah, I can't. Absolutely not. She's the epitome of everything that people like assume about light skinned women, I feel like.
I feel that way about Giselle.
You feel that way about Giselle.
Yes, I feel
I
like that
agree.
and that's for like Mia. I just think that Mia is a dumb bitch. It ain't got nothing to do with her being. It ain't got nothing to do with her being light skinned. Like, I mean, her being light skinned doesn't.
You don't
I
think
feel
her
like
ego and her narcissism a little bit come
right.
into
That's what I'm
these?
saying. Her being light skinned just adds to her ego. But
True. But you
but
think she's already that personality type?
yeah, I think that she's just dumb and stupid and like, but whereas like with like Giselle and Ashley and Robin, like no, bitch, you're not dumb. You know exactly what you're doing. Like,
Oh,
I can
absolutely.
see Mia not understanding how colorism works, or like I wouldn't even feel like dumbing it down for like I'm not about to
She
explain.
does, yeah. Mia can get away with a little bit of plausible deniability because I feel like her
Mm,
IQ is like semi room temperature, but like,
no,
yeah, you're right. You're right. Giselle, 100% I agree because I feel like she's the one that comes off the most educated.
she went to Hampton University. She went to an HBCU. Like,
Yeah, like she's
she knows
very articulate, she's
exactly what
very
she's
clearly
doing.
well educated, she's very clearly like grown up in black spaces. So like I'm sorry, there's no way that you can grow up or be around the black community as a lighter skinned person and not like know or understand what colorism is or know or understand how to manipulate that. Like
Almost
I've
my whole family is light skinned. Like, I don't know how long you've been. I don't know how far you went back to see the show, or how long you've been watching. But when they show
yeah,
their family, the little bit that they do show, because I didn't even know that the big had a
they're
sister.
all light
They're
skinned.
all light skinned, which is a fucking red flag. That's weird. How, like, it's like you're intentionally trying to
You're intentionally breeding that way. Yeah,
right.
100%.
It's not an accident.
100%. I don't think that's an accident either. Like I definitely when I see an entire family like aunts, uncles, cousins, like you know what I mean, like that
Every
operates
black
like
family
that.
is
Like it's definitely a red flag. Like
intentional.
like y'all don't have one dark skinned person in your entire family. The fuck? What?
I would think there's a couple, like a sprinkle, like something.
Like,
Most of my family is dark skinned. Like, I'm like one of the lighter people in my family. Now we do have a couple light skinned people in my family. I'm trying to think, is anybody your skin tone? I mean, obviously if they're mixed, like, we like
yeah.
my mixed brothers and cousins, like they, yeah. I'm trying to think. Do I have? I'm sure I got a couple high yellow cousins, but most
There's
of
a
I got like
there's
one or
very few monoracial black people that are my skin tone. Like, and
yeah.
even if they are
Oh no,
monoracial,
that's not true. One of my friends, a good friend of mine. I know. See, I never thought that you was mixed. And it's so funny. Recently, when I was talking to you on Instagram, I was looking through your page, and I was like, "You look indigenous to me. You look like you. If you told me you was mixed with something, I wouldn't think that you was mixed with white. I would think that you was mixed with like indigenous or something like that. Like yeah,
yeah,
like
I get that a lot actually. I get that a lot. My
yeah.
I definitely have like Métis somewhere along my colonial sides
I have no idea.
situation.
I'm just assuming that I'm black, and I'm sure that the roots trace back somewhere to Nigeria, because most Black Americans Throughout
Absolutely,
like
absolutely.
Nigeria and Ghana, and my mom is from North Carolina, which is like a huge slave trade. So, and most of the North people in North Carolinas, slaves or like people who were enslaved who are in the Carolinas came from Nigeria. So I'm just gonna assume that I'm
Yeah,
Nigerian.
I
I'm
was
gonna
just
call
gonna
it
say
that.
most people from North Carolina would have
Mhm.
been coming from Nigeria, and not only Nigeria, but a lot of the people who ended up in North Carolina were Yoruba.
Okay, good to know.
So that might be like your tribe, girl.
That listen, that's all I need.
Low key cousins.
Right, we cousins. We cousins.
Oh,
Listen.
for sure. No, like I definitely that's one thing that I definitely feel that I have a massive privilege with being I guess Canadian black. If you're black in Canada outside of Nova Scotia, like I guess like the best way to put it is if you're black Canadian and not Scotian, you generally know your history and you grew up heavily within
Hmm.
that culture. Like you you know how to make like my cousins, they're all like Gen Zs, and they know how to make like jollof rice. They grew up speaking Yoruba. They like like they grew up very heavy African culture. So and they know exactly like what tribe, what roots they can trace back to. Like the only people in Canada that can't do that are the Scotians, and like I guess like yeah, that's pretty much
What
it.
about
Like
the Caribbeans? Because I mean, like,
Caribbeans, yes, 100%. But with Caribbeans, you, depending on what country in the Caribbean you're from, it's pretty easy to trace back what
hmm,
country in Africa. Uh,
okay,
Yeah, so like a lot, for example, like most people that would be coming like Haitians would be Nigerians, like
what about
100%.
Jamaicans? Ain't they Ghanaians?
Jamaicans, I feel like Jamaicans, yeah, like heavily Ghanaian influence. You can also tell by like the foods and things like that. So, like for example, like New Orleans,
Hmm.
I can tell you right now that people in New Orleans, if your family like migrated from New Orleans, like or Louisiana at any point during the slave trade or post slave trade, you are 100%, you have Nigerian. You are 100% Nigerian. Like, what are they called? Hush puppies are
Hmm.
basically Nigerian pup puffs. That's what that is. Like,
Well,
you
we
can
eat
tell.
hush puppies in North Carolina too, though. Like,
Yeah, so like things like
yeah,
that. Like anywhere where you see like you can see like a heavy influence in like the cooking and things like that, and like you can generally trace the cooking back to what part of Africa, and based on how the cooking is done too.
like
Um
cornbread versus.
yeah, like like African American cooking versus how they cook in like Saint Lucia, or how they cook in Haiti, how we make our plantain, how we cut our plantain
Right.
is very like,
That's, yeah.
so you can generally tell like if I go to a Caribbean household and I see them cutting their plantain a certain way, I can already like I'm like, okay, like you're either Haitian or this, so that means you're Nigerian.
Right.
Like you know what I mean?
Right.
Like
That's
yeah.
interesting. That's interesting. I do. I like the way Africans cook their plantain because like Jamaicans, we slice ours diagonally, whereas like I feel like some like Liberians or like Nigerians they be like cubing it, and I think that tastes like amazing.
Yeah,
Like
that's a Kenyan thing. Like the cubes with
yeah,
the
I
like
like
almost like a hash brown energy
I
with
like yeah
the
yeah
yeah.
I like that. I like that. It tastes like oh okay, should try
Yeah,
that.
different.
Right.
Yeah, no, Nigerians, we do the angular cut, or we do yeah, so like Jamaicans probably
Like
Nigerian.
diagonally.
Yeah, we slice diagonally.
Okay, I think Dominicans do that too. I'm not sure, or maybe they probably don't do. It. They probably slice it
I
just
feel like Dominicans do like the strips.
right. Right.
Yeah,
That's so
but
interesting. You know, over here, I didn't even realize. Like, yeah, everybody eats plains, but we just eat it differently.
yeah, and you can generally like root things back. Like Creole, like New Orleans and things like that, they basically what's it called, gumbo?
Mm-hmm.
That's
Mm-hmm.
peanut stew. That's Ghanaian, like Nigerian, probably like
I
uh
love New Orleans. I love the New
people
Orleans.
that would have been taken from like Benin,
Mm.
like what now would be modern day Benin. But like, yeah, no, it's definitely, you can definitely tell from the cooking, and if you pay attention to the cooking at the time, you can generally trace back your roots that way if you're Caribbean. But if you're African American, because of the limited ingredients and resources available to African American people, and like especially like in the larger plantations where the majority of the time it wasn't even like edible food, like y'all had to pretty much create a whole new cooking
Right.
culture from
Mhm.
scratch. Like
Right.
there's
But
definitely
that,
pieces
and
and bits.
I don't think that's a bad thing either. Like I'm
No, I
like,
don't think that's a bad thing at all. I
that's
think
our
it's
culture.
dope.
And it's like, and we still, it's so funny, like with twerk, you still see within African American culture, like the little that we were able to grasp onto, the things
Exactly.
we were still very spiritual. So like we like all of that. So, you know, we what is it? Cornbread and collard greens, that's the same thing as motherfucking fufu and well the closest thing that we could get to fufu and fucking what they be eating?
Okay.
Goosey, and yeah, all of that. Like all of that. So
Yeah, no, like I
that's
definitely,
I guess. So yeah.
that that's one of the things, like when I first started, I guess, like realizing that there was like a whole history that I need to educate myself on with like blackness. My family was not a help in that whatsoever.
Yeah.
The conversation was like, you were black and people who look like you used to be slaves, but now you're not and you're free, and Canada freed everyone, and that's it. And I was just like, okay, cool. Like that was like low key the conversation. Like we took all the free people and we saved them. And like my mom brought me to like this woman's house, and her family were like Quakers during the Underground Railroad. So it was very like white saviory kind of perspective that was kind of passed down to me when it came to black history and black, like educating myself on the black community. So I didn't really talk about it with my parents because I didn't really value their perspective, if I'm being completely honest.
But you had to, so
So
yeah, you didn't have that African or Nigerian influence. So how did
yeah,
you had to just do your own research?
well, like, so I met my brother when I was 20,
Okay.
and I met him, like his family they're all Ghanaian. So I met all of them at the same time I met my brother. And they just completely took me into the family, taught me the culture, taught me the food, taught me, like different phrases and things like that. So it's just like they very much like, you know welcome me into the family 100%, like, because their nephew and their son and their brother is my brother. So to them, like, we're family, like, period, like, the end, done. Like, if you're from the same tribe in Africa, you're family. That's your brother, that's your sister, that's your, like, my cousins and I. Anytime I go to my auntie's house, like my cousins, they don't call me cousins. They call me sister or brother. Like I call my like male cousins like brother, and like whatever. Like you don't use like terms like that. Like even my auntie with my uncles, like they're not all like actually siblings, but they all call each other brother, sister. Like you never know
Who was actually
how
right?
anyone's really related to anyone, because we all just call each other brother and sister. And then like obviously the younger people, we refer to anyone like who's an elder as like auntie or uncle, just
Right.
like to be respectful. But yeah, that's generally like the the vibe, and I was brought into that. But like I definitely had to learn and had to ingratiate myself into the community for sure. But yeah, like my mom gave me roots for Christmas when I was 10 and was like, here you go. Like there was no like everybody laughs. Everybody laughs at that.
I'm
Everybody
so
no, you are not the
sorry.
first one. Everyone laughs. It's fucking hilarious, man. Girl, you laughing at I paid all my life. I had
I'm
no
so
mercy.
sorry. I'm so sorry, girl. You know, I ain't never seen you. I have
No,
never
no,
seen.
no, it's fucking hilarious, honestly. It's fucking hilarious. And like every single time I tell people this, they burst out laughing.
I'm
Because
so,
who does that? Who does
I'm so
that?
sorry. You know, it's a it's a genuine reaction. I really like. That laugh was not intended to come out the way that laugh
No.
did. I was like, what? I'm just imagine. I'm sorry. Just imagine this like white
Sister
woman,
Roots for Christmas? Not Roots for
like.
Christmas?
No,
Yeah.
I
And there
forgot.
was no follow-up conversation. It was just like, yeah, like here's a series of black trauma. Have fun. Like there was like there was no like follow up, there was no check in, there was no like nothing. It was just like, yeah. Like I don't even think my mom like watched it before she like gave it to me. She was just like, yeah, it's like black history, know your people, here you go. It's just like I feel like the lack of awareness with that led to me not really understanding the black community in any way, shape, or form because all of my um introductories to the black community was either witnessing black trauma, being brought to third world countries, which was the only time I would see like large quantities of people who looked like me, but they were all poor, they were all living in poverty and suffering, and there was never really an effort to introduce any level of representation of black excellence. That was never like a thing. So I feel like that kind of created like this craving for that I just like sought it out and did a lot of research and did a lot of like digging into black history and sociology and things like that and trying to understand like why like people treat me different or why people hate me so much. And like when I was like I got when I first watched Roots, like that was a very traumatizing situation for me because like not even a year later, after I got that, I started high school. And when I started high school, like things kind of ramped up in like the death threat area and like people like threatening to like lynch me and like all that type of shit. So like I definitely it was like very scary because I'd watched all of these videos and like done all this independent research and like enough to know that that could very much so be a reality regardless of how much like when I would bring it to my family they would just kind of like shrug it off. It's like no, like this could happen and people are capable of hating me on this level just because of how I look and like that's a very real reality for me, and that's a reality that I came to as like a 13-year-old child that like my parents who were in their late 40s at the time like just never arrived at. So like it's definitely it's definitely a learning curve for sure. But I feel like people will always ask like, well, why don't you demand acceptance from the white community in the same way that you demand acceptance from the black community? My answer is always like, even though I have faced like levels of rejection from the black community, I've never felt unsafe. And like white people have actively and repeatedly made me feel unsafe, put me in positions where I felt like my life was in imminent danger. And like that's never happened with the black community. So like people can look at me and be like, call me half breed or tell me like, oh, you're not one of us or whatever, and that's fine. That can be their opinion. But I know they're not going to come to my house later. Like,
Right.
like I know that they're not gonna find out where I live. Like I've had people do that to me before, so it's just like, you know, I can deal like, so I feel like when I hear light skins like whining about how they're treated within the black community, it's like, so you're gonna address all that, but we're not gonna address the white people that I know for a fact have made you scared. Like,
Or just the privilege that you have within the same community that you feel like you're not accepted.
yeah. And like just
Crazy.
acknowledging that is not enough, Candace.
Ashley, the fuck?
Oh my god.
No, I
But
can't. I just want to thank you for being so vulnerable with me. I really appreciate it. Like, I know it's like really
absolutely.
tough to like, talk about our traumas and stuff like that. And I don't mean what were you gonna say?
Oh no, I was just agreeing.
Yeah, no. And I was gonna say I don't mean to cut this to an end, but it is
No,
bath and
you've
body time. It is.
yeah, you've already gone over. You said 8:15,
I
so
did. No, listen. So yeah, it's time to nurse them and put them down.
yes, girl, keep that baby
Yeah,
on that schedule. But yeah, I'm happy to come back anytime. This was a vibe.
this was a very productive conversation. Tell the people where they can find you.
All right, well, I am on TikTok at Isabel Leanne and the same handle on Instagram. So you can come watch me read white people for filth and
Period.
make them immediately crave for therapy, which is the goal.
And we love to see it. The white people they be falling for her for their lives in her comment section. I just be eating that shit up. I drink white tears for breakfast. Um,
Yes. And we have a supply over at my page, so come on through.
ooh, it's overflow. It's an overflow. Her cup runneth over. Y'all know who I am. I am Medusa Show Off, aka Mama Medusa. You can catch me on TikTok at the Medusa Show and on YouTube and Instagram at Medusa Show Off. I will be back for some more. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you, Isabel. I really appreciate you, Izzy.
Thank you for having me.
No, I love you, and I'll see you soon. Bye, y'all.
Bye, sis.
Good night. See you. Let me end this shit. How do I end this? All right, y'all. Bye.